Stanbic IBTC. It can be.
Smooth 98.1. Here we are. It's gone past 6:30, and you are tuned into your Love Music, Love Life station. I'm Sope Martins. And for the next 15 minutes, I have got Babatunde Ogunleye, who's an equity research analyst for the West Africa region with Stanbic IBTC, who is bringing you today's Business Express. Good morning, Babatunde. How are you doing?
Good morning, Sope, and good morning, everyone at home. And then thank you for having me on the show. I'm fine,
Great to
thank you.
have you on the show. Yes. Okay, so I'm looking forward to what we're going to be discussing today because we're going to be
I'm
talking
sure.
about open banking and financial inclusion. And I've got questions. Okay. So if you've
Okay.
got questions, people, all you need to do is join us. We are actually streaming live up on youtube.com/smooth981 FM Lagos. So come, join us, join the live stream and send your messages up on the live stream as well. Leave your comments there. If you've got any questions, if you've got any contributions, we'll be able to take them up on YouTube. And we will also be taking your WhatsApp messages on this number, 0809 4440981. And we're also up on Twitter at Smooth981FM. Use the hashtag Business Express 981. So, Babatunde, my first question for you, very, very easy question. What exactly is open banking?
Okay, so just to take the question, so open banking is just basically an avenue of trying to exchange information between different financial service providers and third parties to be able to, for them to be able to have access to customers' banking, financial, and transaction data. And basically, the purpose of this is to facilitate easy access to be able to create broader range of financial services to these customers, and also facilitate innovations too as well. So I think those are the reasons why we've seen regulator come into play to be able to create an avenue that will also be able to reduce the cost of servicing different segments of the population, basically.
Okay, all right. So what kind of benefits would it present for Nigerians?
So in terms of the benefits, so I'm just going to map the benefit in three approaches. And the first is for the customers. So there seems to be an issue with identity management. So customers have different bank accounts in different banks.
Oh, hold on
Excuse
one
me.
second, Babatunde.
So with
I think there's a slight issue, so I'm just trying to work on that. Hopefully we'll sort that out. Try again for me. Oh, yeah, that sounds better.
Okay, is it fine?
Yes,
Okay.
much better. Go ahead.
Yeah,
so
so
you were saying customers? Mm-hmm.
In terms of the benefit, I'm going to map it in terms of the customers, the third-party provider, and the fintech, and also the banks. Okay. So for the customer have different bank accounts with different banks. And then with open banking, they'll sort of have a 360 views of their different transactions in different banks. So it's more of, instead of you having like different apps, whereby you can only have access to those, to your transaction with a particular bank. With the open banking access, the customer will be able to view their different transactions and to be able to have a view of their different, to be able to have like a 360 views of their account information.
Okay, so basically, I wouldn't need to be opening up different apps or go to different websites. I've just got it all on
one single interface for the customer. So it's just sort of creating a convenience for them. And then also in terms of and also another avenue also is also the fact that banks have different core banking applications. So for a bank like Stanbic, typically uses the Finaco, and you have other banks that uses other core applications like FlexCube. So the integration is always hard when it comes to accessing customers' data. So for a fintech trying to develop a solution to a particular customer segment, they will typically have issues when it comes to integrating with different banking platforms. So with the API, just sort of create a standardized platform whereby information can easily be accessed across the different players in the industry. And the other benefit from the fintech perspective is also the fact that you have access to large customer base from the bank. So banks typically have a volume of customers that typically, like there've been an argument that banks typically have this customer base and they're not leveraging on it. So by having small players like the fintech and also other third-party players develop a kind of a financial transaction like a pension, a micro pension, for different customer segments, and also unbank the informal sector as well. I think the open banking sort of creates the advantage to be able to include people that have been formally excluded from the banking system.
Okay, yeah, so that's an interesting one, because whenever we're talking about anything from tax to banking to anything like that, we already know that we've got a huge informal sector, but then the question has always been, how do we then approach that
try to leverage on those informal sector, basically. So I think for the bank as well, so one of in terms of the advantage for the bank is going to be that banks is going to there's going to be a new revenue stream, and not only banks and also other players that are involved in this. So for you to be able to have access to customers' transaction, there's going to be like a price that is going to be paid by those customer information that is being given, that has been exchanged via the API application. And also the second thing is that for a bank that has like an holding company structure like Stanbic, that typically have pension, insurance, and asset management products, it will be easy for them to be able to cross-sell these different financial products to their customer base as well, and also like to the new customer that are also interested in coming on board to come and bank with Stanbic IBTC. And in terms of the final one is going to be in terms of, there's this thing that banks have been trying to do now when it comes to credit scoring. There's this buy now and pay later. I don't know if it's been a trend that has been going on, whereby a customer can purchase a product from a company like Jumia, for instance, and then through their customer information and their customer accounts, they'll be able to, that is linked with the financial institution, they'll be able to pay later for this product. But the development of that, and the development I've seen so far is that there's lack of credit scoring, because you don't have access, different banks, you don't have access to these customers' history profile and their transaction profile. So with open banking, you just sort of create an avenue to be able to create credit scoring for this particular customer segment, because you'll be able to have access to the different transactions of these and accounts of these individual customers. And with that, may probably see a rise in BNPL, which is the buy now and pay later for this different customer segment.
Okay, because then you would have assured trust rather than operating
yes.
right? Yeah, okay. Now I've got a question in from Henry Emmanuel, who said, and he says this, it's via WhatsApp. He says, immediately I heard make customer transaction data available to different financial services providers, my privacy antenna was awakened. Will the customer know which specific financial service provider has access to their information?
Yeah, so for you to be able to exchange that particular information, the customer consent has to be sought. So like, you need to, the customer's consent is requested for the information to be shared. So without which is why in the new regulation that was released, I think last week on the operational guideline, the CBN stated that there's going to be like a two-factor authentication. So a situation whereby a customer fill an indemnity form stating that their information should be shared across the different platforms. There's going to be an OTP to confirm that the customer really wants their information to be shared across the different financial service provider. So there's that issue, there's that protection when it comes to private data privacy, and the customer can also opt out at any time if they don't feel like they want their information to be shared across board.
Okay, that's an interesting, because privacy and banks, you know, I have to say there have been issues that have cropped up. The latest being people saying that they got an account without ever opening an account, but they got notification of accounts. So
there's going to,
that's that question of trust and privacy will come up. You know, so I'm glad that you've addressed that. Henry Emmanuel, if you got any more questions, send them in, all right? If any of you have any questions about this, go ahead and send them in. Now, you spoke about the CBN and what they've already said with the two-factor authentication and all of that. So the CBN has hands on this, which is great, right? So I want to find out how they, as the regulator, announce what they're doing or how they're going about supporting open banking. Are they supporting open banking, by the way?
The regulator has been very, very supportive. I think the first draft of open banking was released last year, and it was basically talking about like data requirements, principles of API, the things that the level of information and the parties, categories of information that will be shared via the open banking platform. That was the first guideline that was released last year. The guideline that was released recently, I think last week or last 2 weeks, typically to speak about the operational guidelines for the open banking, and also in terms of the risk management approach for the different players. I think one of the striking things as well in terms of this open banking is that the CBN created a regulatory sandbox. And I think the regulatory sandbox is more of a controlled environment whereby small players or probably like new, is more or less like an incubation lab, such that new players, emerging players can come into that controlled environment to be able to create a product and develop a product that can be scaled up later. So the regulator typically give them that opportunity for them to be able to play across, to be able to like develop different products in a controlled environment. And I think they've done so well by through the regulation of the open banking initiative.
Okay, so that also for me is I'm hearing competition, 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 which is a customer's favorite word because suddenly you're the prize and everybody has to fight to get you. Sometimes I feel like they forget. All right, so quick question. I've got a few more that I want to ask you, but we've got this message in from Nasir. And Nasir says, is the customer consent sought or forced? Are people aware of this? Now, I think you've addressed this already, Babatunde. Yeah, so he's already talked about the different stages that you as a customer, that we as customers would then be able to say, okay, no, I give my consent, I give my consent. So it's not just like a one.
It's not random.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's talk about fintechs and banks, right? And the dream utopia of collaboration. Is this something that open banking can bring about? More collaboration, more innovation between fintechs and banks?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So in this on this front, we've seen collaboration from fintechs and banks. So there are banks that have tried to develop their buy now and pay later means that's their lending system. So through the lending system, some fintech typically develop the back end infrastructure for banks to be able to create lending product. So through that collaboration, we've seen like different strategies from the fintech and the banks when it comes to creating the payment system and also the lending segment. And I feel that over time, this is going to be like a new trend for the financial services sector because it's going to be more of collaboration so that more people can be financially included and so that more product innovation can also be developed across the different populace.
Okay, and my last question as we come to the end of the show is, let's talk about security concerns. Could cyber security be an issue with open banking?
Definitely, there's going to be an issue of cybersecurity, and I think one of the things that is also important is financial literacy because people that are probably going to they are probably going to have access to this open banking platform need to be well equipped when it comes to like the level of information that they can be able to access. And I think this is also where the regulation needs to strike a balance between trying to create a means of innovation and competition, and also trying to guide against like customers that are being accessible to fraudsters. So on that front, I think there's going to be an issue of there's going to be an issue of cyber risks. But I think with the level of financial literacy and being able to like speak to people, organizing one-on-one section to people to be able to create an enlightenment in terms of the things they need to know when it comes to an open bank. And I think that is going to go a long way to be able to minimize the risks.
Okay. All right. Well, Babatunde, we've come to the end of the show. Thank you so much for answering my questions, answering our questions, and bringing us a little closer to in-depth understanding of what's going on with open banking. So good people of Lagos, Nigeria, and the world, I've been speaking with Babatunde Ogunleye, who's an equity research analyst for the West Africa region at Stanbic IBTC. Babatunde, it's been a pleasure. Hope we can do this again on another day.
Same here.